And this is Sam Tai. I'm interviewing Mr. Lawrence Lau for the British Chinese Food Project on June 25th, 2011. And hello, Lawrence.
Hello, sir.
Can you please spell your name?
Lawrence, Lau, L-O-U, and Lawrence with a W.
To start the interview, can you tell us when did you first come to UK?
In July 1971.
And do you still remember what you ate at that time?
Well, we ate our Chinese food in a Chinese restaurant of my friend. The first meal we had was noodles, because it's a tradition for the northern Chinese to have noodles as a welcoming party, or as part of the welcome party food. So we had noodle in one of our my parents' friends in Hounslow.
What's your impression of Chinese food at that time in the UK?
Chinese food in general was pretty much chop suey in general, which I didn't quite understand at first. But there were already some very good Chinese restaurants, the Rendezvous Group, which they were very much, pretty good food they serve. But in general, it's curries and takeaways and chop sueys.
And talking about chop suey, do you know any story about its invention?
Well, it was from America, the name chop suey, because these in this Chinese restaurant one evening everything was sold out, and kind of like the end of the evening, and these people came to the restaurant, and the restaurateur said, "Look, we've sold out everything," but they were so hungry, they said anything would do. So the restaurateur just mixed up all the whatever they had and mix it in a big pot and called it chop suey. And they really so much enjoyed it, and they eventually it was one of the dish. But in here, eventually it was changed. Chop suey is mainly consists of bean sprouts and tomato sauce. So if you order for example, chicken chop suey, they'll put a few shredded chicken, stir fry with bean sprouts and a bit of tomato sauce. It's pretty much very much for the English palate rather than for the real Chinese palate.
And for yourself, do you have a favorite dish, or what kind of regional cuisine do you prefer?
I still prefer the northern, because I was brought up in the family of the northern Chinese cooking. But the southern cooking I still pretty much like, because I was when I was younger I was in Hong Kong. But we rarely go to restaurants in Hong Kong, because it was kind of like for the wealthy people to go to the restaurant in those days. So, but with Cantonese southern cooking, we like the dim sum, and some of the dishes they do is really amazing. Yeah.
And when did your father come from Japan to the UK?
68, I think, 67, 68. And he came here as Mr. Chow from Knightsbridge. Before he opened up, he was sourced by Mr. Chow in Hong Kong from when he was in Hong Kong. I mean, when my father was in Hong Kong. Mr. Chow wants to open up a restaurant, and my father was recommended to him. So he was the chef employed by Mr. Chow when he first opened Mr. Chow in Knightsbridge.
And so he moved from, but you said he was It was at Hong Kong at the time.
Yes, he did come back from Japan and stay in Hong Kong for a few months, and sort of very coincidentally, Mr. Chow was opening up a restaurant in Knightsbridge, and then he was recommended.
And later, why did your father open North China?
Well, he always wanted to have his own restaurant, so and also we were kind of growing up. There was three of us, three brothers, and we both helped out in the restaurant in the initial stage to the business. Yeah.
And at the early times when the restaurant was just started,
Mm-hmm.
was it a good environment here in London for running Chinese restaurant business?
Good environment. What do you mean?
Was it, for example, economically, or British people's general attitude towards Chinese food?
Well, it's always a good time, or well, when you open up a Chinese restaurant, it's always the good time or the bad time. It depends on how you look at it. But in those days, I think it was about 35 years ago. Yes, Peking cuisine was pretty much in fashion. It became very popular. Well, it started in about the late 60s. Only a few restaurants opened, and then in the 70s there were a lot more. They were the Rendezvous Group, which they had about 13 restaurants, plus various small sort of family run. And then it was pretty much in fashion in those days. And by the 80s, it was really going. Everybody wants to become a Peking restaurant, and suddenly every chop suey Chinese restaurant who were kind of like used to serve pretty much ordinary Chinese food wants to be part of the Peking restaurant.
When exactly was Peking cuisine introduced to the UK?
As far as I understood, was Peking cuisine was started by Mr. Kwok, who used to be a chef in the Taiwan consulate. I think back in the 60s, early 60s probably, and then eventually more and more. And he invented the crispy duck, which was like Peking duck, but done slightly differently, because we used to have a dish called crispy chicken, and we cooked the chicken in with all the herbs and stuff, and then instead of chicken he used duck, and cooked the same way and served like Peking duck with the pancakes and sauce and spring onions, and that became a instant success, and everybody were following that, and it's still very popular these days.
So crispy duck is actually invented in the UK, not in China.
That's right. Yeah. Peking duck is the real Peking duck is roast, and the crispy duck is actually deep fried. You don't get crispy duck in Hong Kong or in China.
So, is there a difference between Peking duck and roast duck, or even crispy duck?
Peking duck is roast, so the skin becomes crispy. The skin and the meat is kind of separate because you blow up the duck with air, and you roast it in the oven. Crispy duck is different. There's two ways of doing it. One is you can steam it with all the herbs, or you can boil it, or in a pot of herbs, all the ingredients until it softens, and then you take it out and wait for customers to order, and then you just deep fry it until it's crispy.
And do you know who invented crispy duck?
It was a chef, Mr. Kwok, who was the Chinese or Taiwanese counselor in the old days. And then after I think he might finish the job, and he wanted to open a restaurant. So he did.
And has this Mr. Guo anything to do with Guo Yuan?
Yeah, he opened Guo Yuan. That's right. Yeah.
So he's the owner of Guo Yuan.
Yes, but then afterwards, Guo Yuan was then owned by different people. Not Mr. Guo. Okay. No, not Mr. Guo of Good Earth. Is a different person.
And so Peking duck is the representative dish of Peking cuisine.
Yes.
And are there other dishes?
Fish and wine sauce, I would say. Chicken and cashew nuts in yellow bean sauce. Hot and sour soup, but hot and sour soup is also claimed as a Sichuan dish, like beef and chili sauce, shredded beef and chili sauce. But in Peking cuisine, because it has a collection of different regions as well, not just purely just northern cooking, because Peking cuisine represents the food served to the king or the emperor in the old days. So it's sourced from all various different regions, all the best cooking from different regions. Yeah.
When did you start helping in the restaurant?
Well, we opened in '76, and at the time I was studying in Manchester University, but I do come back every week to sort of help out. But in those days the train was really slow, sort of thing, and by the time I got back it was about nearly 9 o'clock on the Friday afternoon, and I have to leave on a Sunday morning, well, Monday morning in effect, kind of like just before 1 o'clock the train starts. And yeah, I do that every week, but I couldn't carry on forever, so I decided by roughly about Easter time I had to stop, and yeah, then I became full-time in here.
And what did you study at university? Has it anything to do with food?
No, it was computer science. It was completely different. I wasn't really happy at the time to sort of work full-time. But that was the past, and yeah, I was after a while I'm all right. I was all right, yeah, and yeah, I'm quite happy.
So it's a hard decision to.
Yeah, it wasn't my choice originally to become working in a restaurant and running a restaurant for long term.
But after all these years, how do you feel now dealing with food?
Oh, it's fascinating. It's quite interesting. The good thing is to have something good for the customer, and the most rewarding is to see happy customers every time they finish the meal. They're really happy, and you see them coming back and again, and that's really satisfying. Yeah.
Who are the customers of your restaurant?
Mainly local people, but we did have some quite. Over the years, some famous people who came before. Can't remember the names now. The British racing driver, what's his name? Can't remember his name now.
And when was that time when?
Oh, that was in the 70s. Early 80s as well.
And do you get any feedbacks from those customers on your food or Chinese food?
Well, we at the moment we are on the timeout, dining the yearbook. So yeah, we do have feedbacks from And also we are on the internet some really quite good reports.
And what do you think is Western customers' standard of Chinese food?
Oh, they are becoming very much. They know what they want now. In the old days, it can be a bit easier to be satisfied, but nowadays a lot of customers wants something different, more authentic Chinese food, and they are quite good now. Even sometimes I change the chef, they can tell. Yeah.
And what do you think may make them now become more knowledgeable about Chinese food?
You just have to explain to them and kind of like educating them. And the more they know, the more they understand, the more they want to try and taste something new, and becoming more knowledgeable. So, which is a good thing, I think.
And do you think there's any reason for the change? For example, the Westerners have become more knows Chinese food better and better?
Yes, I think it will improve the standard of Chinese food. So if they want something better that we can produce, then it's a good thing, because Chinese food, I think, went through a patch of really difficult times where every restaurant was serving the same food, and it became very much like standardized. But over the last few years, it has become a little bit more fascinating again, and yeah, it does a good name to Chinese food, because Chinese food has always been very high up in the world cuisine. It's like very much compatible with the French cuisine as well. And recently, with the help of the Royal China Group, they opened up more professional operated Chinese restaurant. So that improved the image of Chinese food as well. Yeah.
And through the years, have you changed your menu?
Yes, we have indeed. Yes, we changed over the years. We brought in a lot of old dishes, if you like, or more sort of authentic dishes, which we thought the English palate would not enjoy, but then slowly, yes, they become more and more popular.
And what are those old dishes?
Well, especially the fish in wine sauce. Also, kung po prawns, we changed the ingredients, sort of more original.
And do you add new dishes?
Do we add new dishes? We do add new dishes, yes. We sometimes we go to the market and we buy fish or anything like vegetables that is available like in season, and we put that in as a new dish, and we cook it slightly differently, and the customer loves it. Every time you have something new, especially the regular customer, they always like something new. Yeah.
And compared to the time when, like 30 or 40 years ago, do you think that British Chinese food has changed in general?
Yes, it has. Yes, over the years, the last 30 years, the British Chinese food has evolved a lot, I think. But then, I must say, the old dishes are still very popular, like the sweet and sour pork. But we raised the standard. It used to be sweet and sour pork balls, but now, well, we've always been serving the same way of cooking. We didn't serve the pork balls, but nowadays all the restaurants, they don't serve the pork balls anymore. You can only get it in probably just some takeaway restaurants. We don't have a lot of batter around the pork, and the sauces that we have sometimes it's supposed to be dry, then it will be dry, rather than all with very saucy dishes.
And do you think these are good changes for Chinese food?
Yes, I think it raised the standard of Chinese food.
And what do you think of the label of our project, British Chinese food? Do you think it's a valid label?
Yes. At first I thought it should be the Chinese British food rather than British Chinese culture.
Why would you
because
think it's...
because and then I understand, yes, it's the British Chinese food rather than because we are talking about the Chinese food in Britain rather than the Chinese food in general, sort of thing. So I thought, yes, this is a name that is appropriate. Yes,
what do you think is the prospect of Chinese food in Britain?
The prospect is good. Is with the big players like the Royal China, they have really raised the standard of Chinese food. So I think in the future it will become more and more higher standard, and because people know more about Chinese food, they want more new dishes, and the chef has to come up with something new over the years. But I must say we went through a bad patch over the last probably 15 years of the all-you-can-eat culture, which is, I think, didn't do Chinese food a good favor. It sort of cheapens the image of Chinese food. And Chinese food should be eaten freshly cooked rather than cooked and left. Maybe some dishes you can cook and keep warm and it's still very good. But to the English palate, they prefer something like crispy and supposed to be freshly cooked anyway. So yes, I think the patch will not be sort of carry on for too long. This all you can eat thing.
And people have been talking about MSG in Chinese food. What's your personal opinion?
I don't like MSG, I must say. It's a tasteless salt, basically. It does sometimes enhance the taste of food, but sometimes you have chefs who use too much, which sort of overkills the taste, and it's a good way of telling whether the food has too much MSG or not is when after you've eaten the food and you become very thirsty, then you know that you've been overdosed with MSG.
Do you know Mr. Ken Lo?
Yes. I must say Ken Lo helped us very much in the early days when we opened. He used to run this gourmet club he had. The gourmet club was a way to introduce Chinese food to the general public or to the member of his gourmet club. People join his club, and every now and then he will source good Chinese restaurants and bring his member to good Chinese food. And when we first opened, Mr. Kenneth Lo used to come quite a lot until he opened up his restaurant in Victoria.
So you have met him with the members of his gourmet club?
Yes. He used to come and discuss a menu with my father, and then discuss the price, and then he bring his member over, maybe once every month or maybe 2 months. Every 2 months, he will come as a big group, and we will then serve Chinese food that is probably mostly not on the menu. So the members really love it because otherwise they can't have the chance to taste that sort of Chinese food.
And who are those members?
General public, more sort of people who really love Chinese food, try something different, and some of the, I must say, some of the customers who used to come with Kenneth Low as the member of the gourmet club still keeps coming over the nearly 35 years, yeah.
And other than this gourmet club, do you know how did Mr. Ken Low evolved in promoting Chinese food?
Oh, he used to, yes, he also is a very good Chinese cookbook writer, and he also did how to, on the television, how to show people how to cook Chinese food. Yeah, he was has introduced a lot about Chinese food to the general public in Great Britain. Yes.
And what do you think is Mr. Ken Low's contribution to Chinese food in Britain?
He introduced, in the early stage, he sort of opens the door to a lot of people who never tried Chinese food before. He did a few cookbooks, and also the gourmet club really sort of brings people into the real Chinese food taste of the real Chinese food, rather than just sort of media sort of general sort of food that you can get every day from Chinese restaurants. And yes, it introduced new things to the general public, sort of thing.
Thank you for your time.
Thank you.